So quick feedback from TS. Audible and my screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So let's start. So today I think
Sir,
is, yeah,
sir, I'm not able to see the screen, sir.
say again.
Sir, I'm not able to see the whiteboard, sir.
Now this is visible.
No, sir, for me.
Okay, anyway, recording would be there. So you just listen. Maybe some internet issue on your side. So anybody else
Yes,
facing this problem?
Sir, it's visible from our side.
Okay, so I think some issue on your side, Pranjal.
yes, sir, yes, sir. I will see on other device, sir.
Okay. Anyway, it's getting recorded also, so good for you.
Yes.
Fine. So let's start. And today is our 13th lecture. So we are discussing this V/F control of induction motor drive, and we are discussing the PWM techniques. So we have seen some ways to uh, achieve good pulse width modulation for our system, or how to synthesize a good PWM technique. So at least for low pulse numbers, or let us say low number of switching angles within a quarter cycle. So we have seen some of the symmetry conditions where to operate, and then what could be the performance criteria. So performance metric. So some dependent on the current quality we have discussed, like ITHD and something which is proportional, that is weighted THD of voltage. And then we have gone for the total demand distortion for the current and how that is related to the weighted THD of voltage. This all we have seen. Now further we wanted to see which PWM techniques can give such performance. So we went for a few very well known PWM techniques, let us say selective harmonic elimination, and where we have seen that what is actually what we are trying to achieve in this particular PWM. So we are trying to have one voltage harmonic which is present in the line to line voltage. We are equating that to 0 while maintaining our fundamental component. So we are not concerned about the triplet harmonics and all, because those are anyway getting cancelled in three-phase system when we have balanced three-phase pole voltage. So this is where we saw how we can eliminate, and we saw that in general, if we have n switching angles per quarter, which are the independent variables in the system, so we can get rid of n-1 voltage harmonics in the line-to-line voltage while maintaining the fundamental component at the desired level. So then we saw some shortcomings of the SHE PWM, and we have seen that it does not give solution for some of the range of modulation index, particularly the higher range. And then what we saw is that how we can make up for that. So let us say instead of going for elimination, we can go for some other technique where we can just minimize our weighted THD or the total harmonic distortion current. So whichever parameter we can define in terms of switching angles, that we can minimize. Now then we wanted to see how the more relevant to torque, more relevant to motor drive, the torque harmonic is getting generated in the system, and how we can get rid of that. So here one correction I would like to give. So I have been mentioning this positive sequence as theta plus 2 pi by 3. So please note that this is theta minus 2 pi by 3 for Vy and theta plus 2 pi by 3 for the Vb. So this is the correct positive sequence. This I have done the mistake in previous lecture. So this is not the thing. It's theta minus 2 pi by 3 and then theta plus 2 pi by 3. So this is the positive sequence which is rotating at this omega synchronous frequency in counterclockwise direction. And when we have V5, we saw that it is actually coming as negative sequence. So actually it will be V plus 2 pi by 3, and this would be minus 2 pi by 3, so which is the negative sequence, and it rotates at 5 omega synchronous speed. So similarly, the 7th comes as positive sequence, so this correction is needed here also. This is minus and this is plus 2 pi by 3 or minus 4 pi by 3, both are correct. So this is what we have as sequence. Apart from that, what we have discussed is true, irrespective of what phase sequence we are creating. So this how the quantities are drawn in a phasor where we have different harmonics coming up into the system. So we have seen the phasor for fundamental, 5th and 7th, and then we have gone for combining these phasors into one with the desired quantities, which means the flux and the current. Then we saw that if we are in this synchronous reference frame, which means our fundamental components are stationary, how the other components are changing their value, I mean the synchronous speed. So for that, we have tried to come up with the torque expression, harmonic torque expression. So in general, any torque we have seen that it is actually the proportional to the flux and current cross product, the rotor current cross product. So some constant times of magnetizing flux and the rotor current. So we take the cross product of that, that gives our corresponding torque. Now, because we have three magnetizing fluxes coming over there, fundamental, 5th and 7th. So all these three are interacting with all the rotor currents coming over there, fundamental, 5th and 7th. So these all are interacting with these currents and generating different torque components. And what we have seen that depending on what angle is there between the two phasor quantities, we can have the cross product value. So let's say the angle between the fundamental flux and fundamental current, that is a fixed angle delta, and which is very close to 90 degree. So this is our useful torque, which comes as DC quantity. And rest of the other components, what we are seeing over here. So wherever we have two different harmonics getting multiplied, that gives rise to the harmonic torque component. And wherever we have the same harmonic quantities getting multiplied, that gives either DC voltage or 0 in case of harmonic. All other values are having some harmonic frequency, which means either there will be 6 omega t or 12 omega t, depending on what is the relative speed between the quantities and the respective angles. So we have tried to solve this or simplify this expression, and we have found that these many components can be written down for the torque generated by the 5th and 7th harmonic voltage components in the system. And then if we take out the useful component and we ignore the product of two harmonics, psi 5 I7 and psi 7 I5. So if we ignore these terms, then because these both quantities are very small in absolute numbers, and if we are multiplying, this number is further even smaller, so we can ignore this. Then we are left out with the components which have 6 omega t component over there. So this is what is called the 6th harmonic torque, because this has the oscillating frequency, or you can pulsating frequency of 6 omega. So it is sitting something like this on the DC component. So for a 6-step operation or for a square wave mode operation, this is the most dominant component in any motor drive. I mean in the induction motor drive in the open loop. And then if we have to, let's say, compute the approximate value of peak to peak torque ripple, we can actually compute the 6th harmonic torque, and this would be very close to the peak to peak torque ripple in the system. So this is the dominant one. Others may add few more percentage of that, so there could be 12th harmonic because of your 11th and 13th and so on. We can have many more harmonics also. So we can derive expressions for that, but the important question comes like what to do with these torque harmonics. Now if we have such harmonic in our system, basically what it will do, so steady torque is responsible for having steady speed omega, but the pulsating torque or this torque harmonic will actually give ripple on omega, which means what? If under steady state, this is our omega. So with harmonic, the actual omega would look like this. Of course, this some reduction would be there or some filtering would be there because of mechanical first order system. Sorry, this should be opposite, Sj plus B. So because of this, there would be some filtering, but still the component may have significant value, which means there would be steady oscillation on the speed. So which is not good for shaft and the other mechanical components. It may damage actually. The torque ripple may, or the fluctuations on speed may damage the shaft and other mechanical components. So which is why we need to get rid of this speed ripple or speed fluctuation, or indirectly if we say we need to get rid of these torque harmonics. Now let us try to see for the most dominant torque harmonic what can be done. Can we eliminate this harmonic, or can we at least minimize this for some values? So let us say if we note down the torque value once again. So particularly the sixth harmonic torque, if we are trying to write some k times of, so this can be written as some psi 1m IR5 minus IR7 times of sine 6 omega t minus IR1 psi R5, sorry, psi m 5m plus 7m cos omega t. So if you see carefully, these two components are basically in quadrature with each other. This first component and the second component. So if one component is like this, the other component is something like this. So which means the absolute value of actual torque ripple, which will be somewhat like this. This value will actually depend on the magnitude of these two components. In any way, this and this cannot cancel each other. This is only going to add because they both are in quadrature. So this is our actual torque ripple or sixth harmonic torque. So the magnitude of tau 6, if you see, that will be the constant times this square plus this square and then this square root. This is the magnitude. Now obviously these terms are positive quantities because it is square, so they cannot cancel each other. We have to find some way to minimize these terms individually. So here the fundamental flux and fundamental rotor current, we cannot do anything about this because this is our system requirement. We cannot eliminate these two. But only thing what we can do is that we can play with these harmonic components which are there. So first term, let us say if I call as some tau 6 1, so something, let's say some k times it is proportional to, or k1 times proportional to IR5 minus IR7. And then tau 6 2 is some, okay, we can have k also, fine, 7m. So these are two torque components. So then our tau 6 is something like tau 6 1 sine 6 omega t plus tau 6 2 cos 6 omega t. Now this is what we are trying to minimize. So these both the components tau 61 and tau 62 we need to reduce or remove or eliminate whatever we can do. Now let us say in our system if we have 3 switching angles in a quarter, then what we can do is like we can simply eliminate our V5 equal to V7 equal to 0. This we can maintain while having any fundamental component. Up to whatever value of fundamental we can achieve this. But for that range, we will have tau 6 equal to 0. If we are eliminating these two, so this will imply tau 6 equal to 0, because when there is no V5, there is no I5, there is no Psi5. And when there is no V7, there is no I7, there is no Psi7. So for this particular case, when we have 3 switching angles in a quarter cycle, we can completely eliminate our 6th harmonic torque. So these are all proven things in lab. So this practically we find, it's not just theoretical that what we state over here. Now let us say we do not have the liberty of 3 switching angles, we have only 2 switching angles per quarter. So then if we have only 2 switching angles per quarter, what we can do? Now the famous technique what we have seen is selective harmonic elimination, but let us see what that will do. So if let us say we make V5 equal to 0 and maintain our fundamental. Now what do you suggest? What will happen to tau 61 and tau 62? Any comments? Whether it will reduce or increase or what will happen? Any comments?
Reduce.
Which one will reduce? Which one will reduce?
Tau 62 reduce, sir, and tau 61 reverses direction but not reduce.
Correct. So magnitude of tau 61 will actually increase and tau 62 will actually reduce. Now among these two, tau 61 and tau 62, actually tau 61 is little bit dominant compared to the tau 62. So what happens ultimately if we are trying to eliminate, that means having SHE PWM and trying to reduce our tau 6 by eliminating V5 equal to 0 or by eliminating V5, we are actually increasing our tau 6. Are you getting my point? So just blindly having SHE PWM in our system may sometimes be disastrous for our motor drive. So this is not good for motor drive to blindly eliminate. Getting my point? So, and these are proven results. So any one of you are interested in seeing these results, they can come to me. I can show you the practical results also, because here we are dealing in the course, so that has very limited scope. So that's why those results I'm not showing over here, but I do have these results with me. So if you eliminate V5 equal to 0, we are actually increasing our tau 6. So then sometimes this SHE PWM may be very bad for our system if we have limited number of switching angles. For 3 it is okay, SHE PWM you are applying, both 5th and 7th are eliminated, you are happy, tau 6 is 0. Now same thing is not true for this 2 switching angle per quarter. So then what is the other option what we have? So the another famous thing what is given in lot of textbooks and all, and it was actually given by the famous authors Robertson and Hebbar in 1976, that you try to see which component is dominant and that component you eliminate. So let's say this is like this, K1 and K2. So what they suggested, and actually they did the analysis only for 6-step operation, which means the square wave mode. So what they found that this tau 61 is very large compared to tau 62, which means what, the tau 6 is very close to only this term, IR5 minus IR7. Which means what, you can approximately write this as V5 by 5 minus V7 by 7. So then there is one solution. If you are trying to have tau 6 very close to 0, which means you just maintain this V5 by 5 equal to V7 by 7 while maintaining your fundamental. Now this is only one equation and this is another equation. So this is even possible with two switching angles. This is what were the proposition by them. Now this is what is like kind of followed everywhere in any textbook if you see, or any other place if you see. This is what is followed. Someone asks you, you try to eliminate tau 6 and then they will say, okay, maintain V5 by 5 equal to V7 by 7. So then what we figured out, actually working on the same thing during my PhD and other related things, that this is not entirely true. First of all, this is incomplete. And secondly, this is not true always. In fact, it's never true. Whatever we try to do tau 6 very close to 0, it may be close to 0, but not exactly 0, or not even, let's say, to say that tau 6 is significantly removed or reduced. So then the assumption made in the beginning that it is valid for 6-step operation, or the analysis was done for 6-step operation. So this is the reason behind that. This is only true for 6-step operation. The moment you have any switching angle in the system, this falls. So this assumption falls, and then we cannot hold this thing true. So let's say we have two switching angles in the quarter cycle, alpha 1, alpha 2, and this is pi by 2. So then this assumption is not true. Now, which means we have to deal with these two components separately, IR5 minus IR7 plus or minus whatever, because these are in quadrature. So tau 62 K2 times of 5m plus 7m. Now this means we have to deal with the two components. Now again, the assumption given that this is dominant compared to this, yes, it is dominant, but not so much that we can completely ignore this. But what we can do actually, we can maintain, let us say V5 by 5 equal to V7 by 7. Now what it will give? It will give you some multiple solutions. Let us say for two switching angle per quarter, it may give two solutions. Now we have to pick among these two solutions which one to take for minimum value of tau 6, which means the solution which is giving lower value of tau 2 is the best solution. Because for that particular solution, you do not have tau 61 and your tau 62 is also minimized. So we have found this solution, what is given in this outcome of our work, that this is something more complete and it can be generalized for any tau n. So let us say you have the nth harmonic torque to be eliminated. So what we can do, now we have seen that any nth harmonic torque is actually a result of Vn minus 1 and Vn plus 1. These two harmonics are responsible for this torque and not one harmonic. We understand, right? For 6, 5 and 7 are responsible. For 12, 11 and 13 are responsible, and so on. Dominantly, these are the harmonics which are responsible. So in general, we can say that for tau n, Vn minus 1 and Vn plus 1 are responsible. So then we can propose tau n again will have two components. One will be something IR n minus 1 minus IR n plus 1. And then the tau n2, which is the quadrature component, that will be something like tau n minus 1m plus tau n plus 1m. So then we can say that we try to keep this term tau n minus 1 close to 0, and then you minimize the tau n2 term. So which means we are going somewhere similar to optimal PWM or optimized PWM. We are not exactly following any standard solution given in the literature. We have to find solution for each system separately, or each PWM at least separately. So then this can be generalized as Vn minus 1 divided by n minus 1 and Vn plus 1 over n plus 1. These two you maintain equal as much as possible, and you minimize Vn minus 1 by n minus 1 plus Vn plus 1 by n plus 1, while maintaining your fundamental at the desired value. This could be a generalized and complete solution for minimization of any torque harmonic, and this can be extended for set of torque harmonics also. So let's say you have few more torque harmonics to be minimized. Let's say tau n, then there could be tau m, tau k. So all the corresponding voltage harmonics you can keep in this fashion. So Vn minus 1 by n minus 1 equal to Vn plus 1 by n plus 1. Then Vm minus 1 by m minus 1 equal to Vm plus 1 by m plus 1, and so on. And sum of all these to a minimum value. So minimize this tau n2 plus tau m2 plus tau k2 and so on, whatever is the number of harmonic given, while maintaining your fundamental at the desired value. This could be a generalized way of minimizing set of torque harmonics, but of course you should have sufficient number of degrees of freedom. That means the sufficient number of switching angles in the quarter cycle. If we have only 2, we see that we can minimize one torque, let's say 6th. If we have 3, we can minimize 2, tau 6, tau 12. So the beauty of this system is that when we are maintaining 3-phase symmetry and all, the torque harmonic is defined as only the 6th harmonic or multiple of 6. So in general, we can say this is some 6m. So m could be your 1, 2, 3, any integer. So only these torque harmonics are first of all available in the system if you maintain all the symmetries. Now on top of maintaining all the symmetries, depending on how many degrees of freedom you have, you can eliminate or minimize so many harmonics. So in general, for n alphas, you can have 6n minus 1 up to 6n minus 1 minimization. So if it is 2, then tau 6. If it is 3, then tau 6, tau 12. So like that up to this number. So this is some update what we have compared to the textbooks and all, and that is why I do not say that you blindly follow any textbook. Those may be incomplete because in the scenarios in which those are written, the things were not available to such depth. Now, the next thing what we can understand when we have minimized all these things, so we have our torque harmonic minimized or some current THD minimized or something, let's say any other performance metric minimized. So then we can have these PWM techniques for our system where we can use this to have a good performance for our motor drive. Now let us say some more details if we want to have about this kind of system, what we may have. Let's say this waveform is there. two switching angles, let us say alpha 1, alpha 2. This is VRO, and similarly we have all the waveform symmetries and all the things in the other three phases. So we have good quality waveform available. Now someone asks you, for these waveforms, what is the switching frequency? This is a very important term because this is something, switching frequency is something which is very, very critical when we are designing our motor drive or any other power converter. So someone asks you how many, like what is the switching frequency, then we need to understand how this is counted. So one on and off. This is one switching cycle. And in a fundamental cycle, the number of on and off. So this gives how many times the device, any device, let's say we are talking about R phase. So we have two devices, top and bottom, and these are switching continuously. So whenever this our voltage is at plus VDC by 2, our top device is on. Whenever it is minus VDC by 2, our bottom device is on, which means these are switching continuously. There is no break in that. So every transition, both the devices are switching. Now one off and one on means this device has completed one switching cycle, one on and one off, which means one switching cycle is complete for this device and so for this device also, because this was off and then on. So one cycle is complete for this also. So let's say the fundamental frequency is F, and how many number of times we are switching in a fundamental cycle. So that many number of times, let's say P number of times it is switching. So P into F gives our switching frequency. So P is the number of on and off cycles. So P is also called pulse number, which is basically a ratio of switching frequency and fundamental frequency. This is important factor when we start classifying the motor drives in different domains, let's say high power, high speed and all these things, then this is something which is absolute number to define terms. Irrespective of what is switching frequency, what is fundamental frequency, this is something absolute because this number is only the ratio of the two. So this is kind of giving the complete understanding about the system that what we are dealing with. So we will see more details, but let us first understand what is P for our this particular system. Now, if you start counting for this two switching angle per quarter case, we have one on and one off in one quarter cycle. This is T by 4. So which means we will have 4 on and off in 4 quarters. Correct? Plus one switching which is happening at this 0 degree and 180 degree. So here another notch is there. So at 0 and pi, because 2 pi is same as 0, so that's not counted. So at 0 and pi, we have one more cycle of on and off coming over there. So which means for two switching angle case, our pulse number is 5, which means 5 on and off cycles for this device. So can we generalize this? Let's say we have n switching angles in a quarter cycle. So then what is the pulse number or what is the switching frequency? So in general, we can say for n, this is the pulse number for the system. And then the switching frequency is P times of F. So let's say when we have two switching angles, P is equal to 5, which means what? When our fundamental is 10 Hertz, our switching frequency is 50 Hertz. When our fundamental is 50 Hertz, our switching frequency is 250 Hertz, and so on. So it is changing with the fundamental everywhere. That's not a fixed switching frequency. So this is what we have when we have fixed pulse number. Now, irrespective of whether we are operating at 10 Hz or 50 Hz or any other frequency, and whatever is the switching frequency, if the ratio is maintained same, which means the properties of the waveform are defined by these two switching angles only. The angles in themselves may change, the values of the angles may change, but the properties associated with this alpha 1 and alpha 2 is not going to change for the complete range of fundamental or complete range of switching frequency. So that is why I say this is a more absolute term. Now, whether you are analyzing that waveform for 10 Hz or 50 Hz, the properties are going to remain same. So our analysis is kind of generic. We are not dealing with something where we need to change our analysis again and again. Now, all these numbers, when we say this pulse number, something like 5, so what it can be, let us say if we have 2 switching angle, it is 5, for 3 switching angle, it would be 7, for 4 switching angle, it would be 9. So which means the number is always odd. So this is another indication that we are trying to maintain our half-wave symmetry. If we are maintaining odd pulse number, means our switching frequency is odd multiple of our fundamental frequency, P into F. If it is odd multiple, means our half-wave symmetry is automatically maintained, and then we will not have any even harmonics. So first of all, any integer number P is correct for having full wave symmetry, and then the odd number for half-wave symmetry. This is what this indicates also. We can cross verify. We can never have P equal to 6 or P equal to 4. So which means we will be missing some asymmetry will be there in the 2 half cycles of the waveform. If it is symmetric, there are going to be equal number of switching angles in both the halves plus the switching transition at 0 and pi. This is how this number becomes odd. If there is imbalance, then it will become even, and which is a wrong thing, or which is a bad thing or comparatively worse thing to have in our system. Now, these numbers which are low are actually associated with something called a switching energy loss. The switching frequency is associated with this. And typically what we see that for high power applications, we have this problem of more switching energy loss. And so we try to maintain a low switching frequency. And this is where we go for all this low pulse number applications, and which is where we see all this SHE or optimal, all these kind of PWM techniques where our power is going like few megawatts. So then we cannot afford to have. Now how that is happening, let us try to understand a little bit from the switching loss point of view. So quickly, if you recall that our ideal device, what characteristic it has. So again, we are going into the device level things. So let's say this is our ideal switch. So we know what characteristic it has, that while open, it will have I leakage equal to 0, and then it can block any amount of current, voltage, and in on state, it can actually conduct any amount of current, and there won't be any voltage drop across this. So what we have found, the real devices are very, very close to this. Close means the leakage current will be almost very zero, insignificant, maybe few microamps or hundreds of microamp, which is insignificant compared to what power levels we are dealing with. And then this on state drop or something, this also would be small. Let's say for IGBT it's 2 volts. So compared to a 1200 volt DC bus, this is insignificant. Still there is some loss, but not very serious or not very severe. Now this is very, very close to what we see in the ideal devices. Now another property these ideal devices have is that the transition between off and on state or the on to off state, this transition time is 0, TR, which means if we have ideal device and at some instant it is off, this is the voltage across this, and the current is 0, this is the current in that device, then if at this moment we are giving the gate voltage, it will immediately, the voltage will fall to 0 and the current will rise to the rated value. There is no transition time, no delay time, and hence the power loss here was 0, power loss here is 0, and power loss at this instant is also 0. This instant itself is very, very small. It's like very, very close to 0, tending to 0. This is where the real world devices start differing the ideal devices. So in any real world device, what we will have, so let's say we have IGBT and having voltage somewhere like this when it is off, and current which is anyway very small. So let me draw this with red. And then the gating signal is given at this instant. We have given the gate. Now what happens when the gate is given, the voltage does not shift from the maximum value to the 0 value at that instant. It takes some time. There may be one more small this thing kind of thing, or so it takes some time from falling from this value to this saturation value. This is not 0 also. And the current, it may be dependent on the circuit how it will rise. So this is something which is dictated by the external circuit how it will behave. If let's say this is purely resistive circuit, then the current may slowly rise and it will go like this. So if low value of inductor is there in the external circuit, but if the external circuit is having high value of inductance, it may as well go like this. Immediate instant rise in current and then following the rated value. This is for inductive load. Now what is the result of this? Okay, here we have, let's say, minimal power loss. So whatever is happening, that is called conduction loss that we have seen. What is happening on this side, that is power loss during blocking or blocking power loss. This is also small because leakage current is very, very small, and then the conduction loss may be a little bit significant compared to the blocking loss, but still okay, we can manage. And this we cannot do anything because our device is there and other things are coming in place, let's say the system rating and also, we cannot do anything about that. Now in between what is happening, that because of non-zero voltage and current, we have some type of power loss, something like this for resistive load or low inductance load, and for this kind of high inductive load, it may be even more. So something like this. So of course this area is more than this area, which means the energy loss within this time, let's say this is transition time, the energy loss E on or E off, this is for E on actually. So this is finite. So basically E on is what? Your V into I and dt, the area under this curve, what is there? These both are function of time, V and I, and then this is how your E on comes. So now, if so many number of cycles are coming, let us say switching frequency is FSW, which means what? In a second, in 1 second, we have FSW number of operations or switching operations. In 1 second, we have FSW number of switching operations, and that is the definition of switching frequency. So which means total power loss in only the on duration would be E on into the FSW. And similarly, we can have P off, because if we are turning on, we will have to turn off also, something like this. So the total switching loss, if we have to write, that will be something like P switching loss equal to E on plus E off into FSW. So we can clearly see the E on and E off, these are device dependent. And hence we cannot do much if we are bound to use a particular device for the system. These things are fixed. Now this is dictated by what switching frequency we have. Now for very high power devices, let us say one example I will give for a practical device. This is a practical device which is Infineon make, and the properties are written. This is one single IGBT with anti-parallel diode. You can go on search the data sheet and see the characteristics also. Now this has some voltage rating, let's say 4.5 kilovolt, and the current is 1.2 kiloampere, which means this is a high power device. Now for such device, if we try to see what is happening during the on and off switching transitions, so what we will find, this is the on transition, what this device, these are all captured in lab, these are practical waveforms. Now VC is the voltage across the device. So when the gating signal, this S is given, then after some delay, so this is S is the from the control card, VG is the actual gate emitter voltage which has risen up, and once it goes to some stable value, VC starts falling and goes to the lower. This is the 0 for VC, whereas current 0 is somewhere here, the blue line. So while it is dropping, it has not fully dropped also. The current has almost lifted to the full value. So this very sharp rise in current, this is what we are talking for the inductive load. So almost within no time, this current has gone to the maximum value, and then it continues and comes back. There is some overshoot also. There are different reasons for that. We may discuss sometime later on. So then it comes back to the rated value or whatever is the current in the system. And this red line actually gives what is the power loss in the system. So the total area under this curve will be your E on. So we can see this value is significant. It's not a very small number, because current levels, if you see, that is 1200 amp, and then we see 4.5 kilovolt. So the product is definitely going to be a big number. And then whether even if this time duration is small, the product is going to take that number to a significant value. Similarly for T off, we will have similar kind of thing. Now here the T off takes more time. That is because of the device characteristic. We have no say over it. This is how the system is. We have to use, we are bound to use this device. Again, we see E off coming over here. So some way we see that the values of E on and E off, these are beyond our control. Non-controllable. Unless we are changing the values of VC or this collector current IC, which is actually system defined, we may not be able to change these values. So then only thing what we have in our hands is the switching frequency that we can change. Now if this loss is very, very significant, then we have to reduce our switching frequency to a low value. And this is what is the message which I am trying to give from this waveforms. Now for a practical system, let us say when we are talking about something of the order of 1 megawatt motor drive, typically what we have, that switching frequency is bound to be below 500 Hertz. We cannot cross this, irrespective of what fundamental frequency we are having. So then, which means that we need to go for these PWM techniques what we have discussed. Now, if let us say we do not have such heavy systems, which means our E on and E off are within control, within limits. Let's say for a system like 5 kilowatt or up to 10 kilowatt. This is something which is like within control. This E on and E off is a small value. This is where our switching frequency is little more relaxed. It's not constrained to these low numbers. So then it can be something like 2 kilohertz or 5 kilohertz, something like that. And typically these systems are having the fundamental frequency of 50 hertz or something. So this is a good proportion or good ratio. That means our pulse number FSW by F, this is a big number. Let's say something like more than 21 or something. So this is what we have for low power systems, and such low power systems, we need not go for the PWM techniques like SHE or optimal, because number of switching angles in a quarter cycle would be too high to design in that manner. There will be too many angles, too many equations to solve, which is not an advisable thing to do. So then there are other PWM techniques which generally we use for our system. So now let's say we have our SPDT switch given. So DC bus capacitance and then one leg of our converter with the generic switches. So this is there, and with respect to O, this positive DC bus is plus VDC by 2 and negative DC bus is minus VDC by 2. Now we have seen that our pole voltage, that can be something like okay, let me draw a little more. So let's say if we have one switching cycle, once we are turning on and off for a time period T. This is our instantaneous pole voltage VR. Now this duration is, let's say, T on. So this is our plus VDC by 2 value. This is our minus VDC by 2 value. So this is our instantaneous VRO, which means if VRO we have to define the instantaneous values or expression for VRO, it will be written something like this. When T is between 0 and T on, this is plus VDC by 2, and when this is between T on and T, then it is minus VDC by 2. Now we know that for this instantaneous pole voltage, we can have our average pole voltage given as the voltage into time during this T on and during this T off divided by the total time 1 by T. So we average, let us say I indicate it by a symbol, something like this. So this symbol means the average value of pole voltage or VRO voltage or whatever voltage is written inside this. So this we can write the expression as, so VDC by 2 times of T on plus minus VDC by 2 times of T off. Now this VRO can be expressed in terms of T on by, sorry, this is, yeah, T off. So where T off is nothing but T minus T on. So then this can be expressed in terms of T on by T as, you solve and get this. So if we define this T on by T as our duty ratio D, then this can be written like this, where D is nothing but T on by T. So then our average pole voltage can be written in terms of this D duty ratio for this time period T. We have this interval T. This is our operation time, or let's say the interval for which we are having on and off cycle. Then this is how our average pole voltage is given. The instantaneous is given here, which means the waveform drawn. The average value may be somewhere here or anywhere in between plus VDC by 2 and minus VDC by 2. So let's stop here, and we'll start from here tomorrow, and we'll discuss more about some other PWM techniques and then some more analysis related to the motor drive and how it comes. So any doubts or any questions you have so far, you may ask quickly, and then because you may have next class also. So any questions, any doubts, quickly you may ask. Okay, then in that case, let us stop here, and we'll meet tomorrow again. Or maybe, yeah, in the afternoon for the lab and assignment session. So let's meet at 2 p.m.